Okay. So writers, we've done a little bit of exploration about edgy stories, unsafe stories, and when we want to write these stories, there are places to find them. And maybe they're the places that you've already explored, and we know that sometimes you find these edgy issues in places like gyms. So think right now, think about a time in a gym when something happened to you that would be interesting to write about. Maybe it was something edgy. I remember friends trying to roll each other up in the wrestling mats. It wasn't a good idea. The cafeteria. We all probably have great and wonderful and not so wonderful things that happen in cafeterias. Recess, after-school play, lockers, the hallway, our friends, our families. So think about those types of places, and I'm going to show you what I've done. I took myself back to 4th grade. I've been working with 4th graders quite a bit. So when you start thinking about your examples, we know that we want examples that our kids can relate to. So we try to find examples from about that time in our lives. So I'm thinking about the 4th grade playground in Scottville, Michigan. And when I was in 4th grade, the place to be during lunch hour, when kids really had almost an hour lunch hour, was the big swings, the big swing or the big swings. And that was where we gathered. And so I would race out the door, and I would always go for a big swing. And I remember Roger Smith, maybe I shouldn't use his name. I don't even know what happened to him. But he used to bring me, he would go home for lunch, and every day if I was on the big swing, he would look for me there, and he would give me those long pieces of bubble gum every day. Yeah. So that was one thing I could write about, the big swings. Another time in 4th grade, which was kind of a scary time for me, a much larger, older student in the resource room down the hallway. So this was in the days when the special education students were in the same, they were all in the same area. And so I think ours was a K-5 building, and then there were students also up through high school and in the early 20s that's sharing the building with us. And Tony wanted me to be his girlfriend, and he pushed me against a wall. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. Or another time, so this would be a time I was maybe embarrassed or got lost, 6th grade. So in Scottville, Michigan, in my middle school years, we were in the 3rd oldest building in use in Michigan. Beth Stenzel is nodding with me. She knows that building. Probably other people here know that building. Big brick building. And so my first day, I'm trying to find my PE class, and I know it's in the basement. And so I go in the basement, and I go right by the open locker room door, and it's the boys' locker room door. And of course, I skedaddle out of there right away, and there were rumors that somebody had gotten the wrong spot, and I denied it. I probably denied it till I was like 40. I think I just now fess up to my sister, who was in the grade level with the same boys who were in the locker room. But anyway, so you see that I just wrote a sentence or two, just kind of a reminder. So would you take a moment and think about 2 or 3 places or things that happen? Maybe they all happen in one place, but 2 or 3 particular story events that you might want to explore, and just write a few lines in your notebook about them. You could find a partner and label yourselves A and B. And please pause. Sorry, I should have given you the direction right away. Share the story that's strongest. So A's will start first. You can read from your book what you wrote down, or you can just simply tell the most important part of the story. You just have about 2 or 3 minutes, and then after that 2 or 3 minutes, then B's will go ahead and share the most important part of one of their stories. Go ahead. Please pause. Sorry. If you haven't switched, go ahead and switch now. We'll take about 2 more minutes. Thank you, writers. I have to tell you, it was very fun to kind of sit back and watch this, and I was trying to listen in. Your hands were waving. Some of your faces were turning red. I think I saw a tear in one place, but mainly it was like there was a lot to talk about. There was a lot of activity, and it just proves the power of our stories and how we need those stories. It's how we learn. And so in a moment, you'll have some time to start writing one of your stories. And I want to share with you a story I wrote about Tony. And if you have been in my classroom in the past, you'll know that I come back to Tony over and over again. And for those of you who have maybe heard the Tony story before, I want you to know that I've added some dialogue to my Tony story. And that's another grammar lesson down the road. So this is my Tony story. Tony, a much older boy in the resource classroom, and I should tell you, I do have it in my notebook too. Because of working with adults in big groups, I've made a few changes. Tony, a much older boy in the resource classroom, said hi to me every time we passed in the hallway. He spent his days apart from most of us in the big room at the end of the building, the room with the kitchen, toys, and colorful mats. I was a fourth grader in Mr. Spangler's room, and I always said hi back to Tony, even when the other fourth graders made fun of him. The recess bell rang for lunch, and I got ready to go get to the big swings. Tony grabbed my arm as I raced out the door. "What are you doing?" I yelled. "Let go!" I started to cry because he was hurting me. "I want you to be my girlfriend," he said. "Right now, be my girlfriend." His face was red and he was yelling, and he pushed me against the brick elementary school building wall. So that's all I'll read for right now. And it was fine. Everything turned out fine. But that's another story. So think about which story you want to write about, and you can stay right where you are right now and start writing it, or you're welcome to go back to your place to write, and we'll take about the next 8 minutes for you to get into your story. And I'll ask you to honor the silence of writing time. Thank you. So stepping outside of the role, I forgot to give you the link when I sent you off to your independent writing. And a link that I think I would use for this one would be that, so writers, when we want to think of stories, we know that we can sometimes go to places like gyms and playgrounds and locker rooms, and we can find where those edgy stories live that take us right back to that moment, stories that people want to read and that we want to share with people. And so as you get ready for break, during break you may want to share what you've written with somebody, and we'll be returning to these stories also during our grammar mini lessons. So thank you for taking the time to do this with us.